Zombies are coming.
I'm here with my friends. Nickelodeon. The song and Nickelodeon.
I remember Tak and the Power of Juju being this really big franchise that came out of nowhere back in the mid-2000s. Right out of nowhere, there were games, toys, and of course, a cartoon. The franchise was almost inescapable for a short period of time. Even if you didn't watch the show or play the video games, you at least heard about it. And then one day, the franchise completely vanished and nobody ever talked about it again. If I had to wager a guess, I would assume the Tak's popularity was the result of astroturfing. People paying a lot of money to make their product look extremely popular in hopes that it actually becomes popular. You know, like somebody buying a shit ton of copies of their own book to get on the New York Times bestseller list. Because this is kind of what happens during a failed astroturfing campaign. You hear about it a lot, and then the whole franchise just goes poof. The Tak and the Power of Juju cartoon came out at the tail end of the franchise's popularity, and it may have been the final nail in the coffin because this show is not good. I had guessed that this wouldn't be a fun one going in because I get requests for Tak and the Power of Juju all the time, even though it was completely off the air since I had started. Usually people only request shows that are currently airing, but Tak was a bit of a different case. That being said, I didn't know how bad the show was, and it's bad. Like, really bad. I mean, it's not the worst cartoon that I've ever seen, or even the worst Nicktoon ever, but this show has nothing going for it. Let's start with the most pressing problem of the show, and that's the animation. As you can tell, it's CGI. Now, that's not a problem in and of itself. Jimmy Neutron was CGI, and it looked alright, especially for the time. The problem is that bad CGI tends to look worse than bad hand-drawn animation. And, well, Tak and the Power of Juju has the second worst animation of any 3D Nicktoon. Yes, even the later, more infamous cartoons, like Fanboy and Chum Chum, Planet and Sheen, and Robot and Monster. They all have better animation than Tak and the Power of Juju. The only CGI cartoon that looks worse than Tak and the Power of Juju is Monsters vs. Aliens, and we're going to be getting to that disaster piece much later. I'm not talking about the character designs here. They look exactly like the toys they were meant to push. No, I'm talking about literally everything else. The trees look like they were made out of plastic. The houses look like they were taken from a PlayStation game from 1995. The show looks ugly as sin, and it's not just in the overall appearance. The biggest problem comes from how everyone moves. This is actually a huge problem because it makes everything else about the show almost unsalvageable. Timing is incredibly important in terms of comedy. It's a good thing that whoever animated this thing has no idea how to pace a shot. Even worse, though, is that you can never really feel an impact in the show. People do get hit by objects, but more often than not, it looks like a collision error rather than slapstick. So, that's any sense of comedy. Goodbye. And don't even get me started on the expressions that the characters try to make. They look god-awful, and it's a big problem when the show often tries to be one of those slapstick-heavy cartoons. Yeah, for the most part, this cartoon wants to make you laugh with random misfortunes, but every single part of it is poorly constructed. Oh, and don't get me started on anything that isn't solid. Dust, particle effects, they're all basically just layered over the shot. It's like a toddler drawing on a television screen to add to his VHS recording. The dust effects are often used to mask buildings and people going from one state to another, and it's incredibly obvious. If a monster is going to destroy a building, for instance, it'll look fine. Then dust comes over, and then the building is immediately broken with no debris whatsoever. The shortcuts that the show takes are incredibly noticeable, and they constantly look lazy. What can you expect when the budget of the show is a trade-in at GameStop? Am I being too harsh on this? No, expect a cartoon based on a PlayStation 2 game to have better animation than you'd find on the PlayStation 1. And this is not an exaggeration. Look at some of the stuff that you'd find on that console. Meanwhile, here you have Tak looking like a failing college freshman's midterm exam. And in this show, the animation is especially important. This isn't a story-driven show like As Told by Ginger that could get away with having ugly animation. I mean, it better not be a story-driven show. It stars Tak, a shaman in training who's bad at being a shaman. So basically, the show is about a novice magician screwing up at magic. Considering this is a tale as old as the 1940s Fantasia, you're going to need to bring something really creative to mix it up. Star vs. the Forces of Evil got over this uncreative and cliched idea by being full of energy and having really great characters. I guess Tak kinda has something like that. Tak's best friend is the tomboy princess, or the chieftain's daughter. Oh wait, that's not creative at all. Oh wait, the leader of the tribe, her father. He's a dumbass fat slob. Oh wait, that is one of the most cliched things that I've ever seen. What about the idiot best friend? No, that's been done to death too. Oh wait, I got it. I know something that Tak in the Power of Juju has that no other show in history has. It is the most creative thing that the show could possibly do. It has Patrick Warburton playing a stupid strongman character. I guess this show takes place in a tribal village, which is unusual, but that's not really much. Is the Jetsons really all that different than the Flintstones in hindsight? It's the same character types doing the same thing in different settings. And that's Tak's problem. We've seen these characters in so many other cartoons, and this show doesn't have a creative bone in its body. If you must know, Tak is a sorcerer's apprentice. I mean, a magician in training. I mean, a shaman's assistant in the village of Poo-Poo Nunu, which sounds like a pet name that you'd give your dog. Tak is not very good at this. Sometimes. It's really inconsistent. Sometimes he's able to cast a spell without a hitch. Sometimes he screws it up for absolutely no reason. And sometimes it's only because his mentor gave him the wrong spell. Oh, by the way, Tak never uses magic words when he's waving his Juju wand about. It just goes badly randomly. Ah yes, Tak has the power of Juju. Juju is actually a real thing. I mean, okay, that was worded wrong. It's actually a real belief system. It's absolutely nothing like how it's portrayed in Tak in The Power of Juju. In the actual West African belief system, Juju is mostly about luck. You know, giving someone good or bad Juju. It's not really magic. And it's certainly not about talking to extraplanier beings. Yeah, in this show, Juju is not just magic, but Juju is also a plane of existence. And it's also a group of people like Dungeons & Dragons demons or the Elder Scrolls Daedra. This may seem a little bit petty, but it's a bad thing when you take something real like this and just completely badly misunderstand it. I mean, it's not like they're talking about voodoo, something that's already been watered down into cartoonishness. No, they're talking about something no one else really uses for, I have no idea. I guess they want it to be original. Speaking of which, the fantastical creatures in the show have the same amount of creativity as the rest of the characters. Oh look, an octopus person. A giant spider creature. A+ design on that. Wooden things. I hope these aren't taken straight from the games, because these are all boring as hell. I'm not asking them to take things from like an actual mythology system, although that would be pretty cool and it would warrant using Juju. But I do expect something a little bit more alien, a little bit more fantastical than things I've seen 1,000 fucking times. Some things that work in a video game don't work in a cartoon, and vice versa. While the video games tend to be a cult classic and fondly remembered, I don't think anyone is going to go out of their way to watch whatever the hell I just did. And that's probably for the best, because the best thing I can say about this show is that it's forgettable. It's bland, it's cliched, and it's poorly put together, which was probably the last nail in the coffin for Tak. Making a cartoon this bad has to be bad Juju of some kind, I'd imagine.
Coming up, it's...
Don't you know it's just the way we animals roll.